The desert planet Carveth 9 looked like hell from orbit. Red sand stretched in every direction, broken only by massive rock formations that rose like ancient monuments. The temperature on the surface could cook meat during the day and freeze water at night. This was exactly why the Galactic Survival Council used it as their testing ground. Ryan Webb stood in the orientation room with 46 other candidates. They came from 23 different species, each hoping to prove their people could survive the harshest conditions in the galaxy. The prize was worth the risk. Any species that passed the Sandstorm test earned mining rights to entire sectors of hostile worlds. Resources worth trillions of credits waited for those strong enough to claim them. Ryan was 32 years old, average height for a human, with brown hair and a lean build from years of field work. He worked for Earth's Colonial Assessment Division, evaluating potential settlement sites. This test would determine if humanity could expand into the galaxy's most valuable territories. He looked around the room at his competition. The Zentari dominated one corner. They stood over 8 feet tall, covered in thick armored scales that could stop bullets. Their species had passed the test 60 years ago and treated everyone else with barely hidden contempt. Commander Grix, their delegation leader, caught Ryan's eye and made a dismissive gesture. To the Zentari, humans were soft creatures from an easy world. Near the viewing window, 3 Thorians waited in silence. They looked like walking crystal sculptures, their bodies made of a transparent mineral that bent light in strange ways. Prism 7, the youngest of them, seemed nervous despite their species' reputation for resilience. The Thorians had passed the test 2 centuries ago. A group of Mevlacs huddled together near the water dispensers. They were amphibious, with blue-gray skin and webbed hands. Their home world was mostly ocean, but they had adapted to land over generations. 4 other species filled out the room, including 2 that Ryan had never seen before in all his years of galactic travel. Coordinator Vex entered through the main doors. The Krillnath administrator looked like a giant mantis with 4 arms and compound eyes that missed nothing. Vex had run the Sandstorm test for 20 years and had seen hundreds of candidates fail. "Welcome to Carveth 9, Vex said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into common language. "You are here to prove your species can survive in extreme conditions. The rules are simple. You will be dropped into assigned zones across the testing area. You must survive for 48 hours. You will each receive a basic survival kit containing water purification tablets, emergency rations, a thermal blanket, 50 meters of rope, and a distress beacon." Vex's 4 arms gestured at the large screen behind him. It showed the desert landscape from above, divided into colored zones. "Your zone assignments are based on body type and homeworld environment. The test is designed to be difficult but fair. You may use anything you find in your zone to survive. Building shelter is allowed. Cooperation between candidates is forbidden." "What about the storms?" asked one of the Mevlacs, her voice wavering. "There will be storms," Vex confirmed. "This is storm season on Carveth 9. You must survive whatever weather occurs during your 48 hours. In 400 years of testing, only 12 species have passed. This is not easy. This is not meant to be easy." Commander Grix laughed, a harsh sound like scraping metal. "The Zentari passed with ease. We built bunkers that stood against Category 3 storms without damage. Most of you will fail." "The human will definitely fail," added another Zentari. "Look at him. No natural armor, no thick hide from a planet with gentle weather. Earth creatures are weak." Ryan said nothing. He had learned long ago that arguing with people like Grix was pointless. Better to let actions speak. He focused on Vex's presentation instead. The coordinator showed them images of previous tests, candidates struggling in the heat, emergency evacuations during unexpected sandstorms. The few who succeeded, exhausted but alive after their 2 days in hell. "You will be monitored at all times," Vex explained. If your life signs become critical, we will extract you. If you activate your distress beacon, you fail the test but will be rescued. Questions? What's the worst storm level this planet produces? Ryan asked. Vex's head swiveled toward him. The highest recorded storm was Category 4, 12 years ago. All candidates were evacuated. No one has ever survived a Category 4 or higher storm during the test. But it's possible for storms that strong to happen? Yes, this is an active storm planet. Weather can escalate quickly. That is part of the test. Ryan nodded, filing the information away. Around him, several candidates looked nervous. The two unknown species whispered to each other in a language the translator couldn't process. 2 hours later, Ryan stood in the dropship with 9 other candidates. They would be scattered across different zones, each facing their own challenges. Through the window, he watched the red desert grow closer. His zone, Zone 7, appeared on his display screen. Rocky terrain with strange vegetation marked as native flora. The ship touched down briefly in each zone to offload candidates. When Ryan's turn came, he grabbed his survival kit and jumped down to the sand. The heat hit him immediately, even through his protective clothing. The air tasted dry and dusty. The dropship lifted off, leaving him alone. Ryan turned in a slow circle, assessing his surroundings. Massive rock formations rose on 3 sides, creating a natural basin. Strange plants dotted the landscape. Most interesting were the giant cacti that grew in clusters. They looked like massive spines jutting from the ground, some reaching 40 feet high. Their skin was thick and waxy, a deep green color that almost looked black in the harsh sunlight. He checked his kit contents, confirming everything Vex had mentioned was there. The water purification tablets would be useful, but the real challenge would be shelter. The temperature would drop drastically at night, and storms could hit without warning. Ryan walked to the nearest giant cactus. He had seen similar plants on Earth, though nothing quite this large. He knocked on the outer skin. Solid, but with some give to it. Using his knife from the survival kit, he carefully made a small cut. Moisture beaded at the wound. The inside was pulpy, full of water-storing tissue. More importantly, when he put his ear to the cactus, he heard an echo. Hollow. Or at least partially hollow. A small opening near the base caught his attention. It looked almost like an animal burrow, but something about the smooth edges suggested it was a natural part of the plant's structure. Ryan crouched down and peered inside. The hollow went deep into the cactus, creating a chamber easily large enough for a person. He sat back on his heels, thinking. Other candidates would be building elaborate shelters, using their technology and natural advantages. The Zentari would dig bunkers. The Thorians would create crystal shields. Everyone would try to fight the environment with force. But Ryan had learned something during his years of surveying hostile worlds. The best survivors weren't always the strongest. Sometimes they were the ones smart enough to learn from their surroundings. He looked at the giant cactus again, seeing it with new understanding. This plant had survived on Carveth 9 for thousands of years, maybe millions. It had evolved to handle the heat, the cold, and the storms. Its thick walls would insulate. Its hollow interior would provide space. Its moisture would prevent dehydration. Ryan made his decision. He would let the planet teach him how to survive. The first step was making the interior comfortable. He spent the next hour carefully removing some of the inner pulp, creating more space without compromising the cactus's structure. The work was slow and deliberate. Rushing would be foolish. He had 48 hours to get through, and staying calm was just as important as Ryan woke to the sound of wind. The first rays of sunlight were just appearing over the rock formations. He checked his chronometer. 6 hours of sleep, good enough. His body felt rested, and the cactus had kept the night cold from reaching him. The temperature inside his shelter had stayed stable, while outside it had dropped to freezing. He crawled out through the opening and stretched. The desert morning was actually pleasant, with the air still cool from the night. Ryan did a quick scan of his zone. Nothing had changed. The other giant cacti still stood like silent guardians. Small animal tracks crossed the sand near some rocks, but the creatures themselves were nowhere to be seen. His communicator crackled to life. Coordinator Vex was doing a status check. All candidates report in. Status updates, please. One by one, the voices came through. The Zentari reported excellent conditions in their bunkers. Prism 7 confirmed the Thorian crystal domes were stable. The Mevlax had spent an uncomfortable night in their cave, but were managing. The two unknown species reported they had built shelters from rocks and thermal blankets. Zone 7, human candidate report, Vex said. Ryan Webb here. Status is good. Shelter is secure. There was a pause. Clarify shelter type. I'm using one of the native cacti. The hollow interior provides adequate protection. Another pause, longer this time. Ryan could imagine the scene in the monitoring station. Vex probably thought he was joking or had lost his mind. Commander Grix's voice cut in, full of scorn. The human is sleeping in a plant. This is your great Earth survival technique? Pathetic. It works, Ryan said simply, then switched off his communicator. He had better things to do than argue. The morning passed quietly. Ryan explored his zone more thoroughly, staying within a reasonable distance of his cactus shelter. He found several interesting things. Small burrows dug into the base of rocks, probably by the local wildlife he had seen tracks from. A depression in the ground that might collect water if it rained. More of the giant cacti, each one slightly different in size and shape. What he did not find was any sign of previous candidates. The desert had erased all traces of whoever had been tested in this zone before. The sand shifted constantly, the wind sculpting new patterns every day. This was a world that did not keep memories. Around midday, the heat became intense. Ryan retreated to his cactus shelter and rested. The thick walls blocked the worst of the sun's radiation. He sipped water sparingly, knowing his supply had to last. The cactus pulp could provide moisture in an emergency, but he wanted to avoid relying on that if possible. His communicator came alive again. This time, the voices sounded more stressed. One of the unknown species was reporting difficulty with heat management. Their rock shelter was baking in the sun. Vex authorized extra water rations from emergency supplies. Ryan listened and said nothing. He was learning that different species had different weaknesses. The Zentari could handle extreme temperatures because of their armor,